What's good, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boy Omnisensei back with part 3 of What If Overbullied Izuku Midoriya Chose to Become a Villain. If you enjoy my content, consider buying me a coffee. Link in the description. Like the video, share, and subscribe. Remember to check out the author of this fantastic fanfic. Link in the description. With all that out of the way, let's get into it.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
They look shocked as to what just happened. The environment was dark and rainy. My quirk won't be hindered in this environment. The villains immediately jump down after them. They start chasing the weaker looking one of the two. He looks as if he's terrified and shaking. On the other side, the cloaked student with the raven-like head quickly defeats 4 villains, using a shadow-like creature to injure them. 2 villains run straight after the nervous student. Suddenly they get slammed against the wall by the other person, quirk. I can hear voices coming from it, as if the shadow is trying to talk to the quirk user. Can I control it? One by one I watch as they try to use their quirks. I haven't seen the nervous one use his quirk yet. Can he not use it in this environment? I think I've seen enough. I quickly jump down at the end of the alley, keeping my distance as I want to gauge their reaction. I start slowly walking towards them. They notice me a few seconds later as they look at me with shock. "It's you," the raven-like student says to me, as he looks in shock. "Do you know me?" "White hair, gray mask. Who doesn't know you, you murderer?" I didn't murder him, but apparently it spread that far to people. I think they misunderstood me. "Do you know how much our friend has suffered because of you?" "He must be talking about Lita. Are you going to keep talking?" As soon as I said those words, his shadow increases more and more, as if he's losing control of himself. Is it influenced by his emotions? What a surprisingly similar quirk to mine. He starts screaming. I think he's losing control. He suddenly charges at me, knocking his friend to the side, completely ignorant of injuring him. At this point I was positive he wasn't in control. His shadow starts to grow more and more before it's the size of a building. I quickly jump back to avoid being attacked as I wrap my wire around his shadowed arm. He throws his arm up fast and flings me into the air, knocking me to the top of the buildings. What can I do in this situation? I suddenly have a thought. I jump down onto him as if it was a leap of fate as I anchor my wires into the shadows, as I start wrapping the string around its arms, building up momentum, so I can use my entire body to bind T. I wing several times round both his arms. I get stable footing as I heat up and tighten my wires to make him trap himself. As soon as its arms are trapped, I activate my quirk puppet strings. I try to take control of the quirk user and its quirk. If its quirk is a conscious shadow, I should be able to take control of it as well. I focus my quirk as I'm swallowed by the shadow. The entire environment is a dark haze as I see the raven-like student, shouting and pleading for the shadow to calm down. He looks over to me, with a look of shock and fear. "H, how are you here? Your quirk is to control people. This doesn't make sense. You must be a fan of the news. However, that's for me to know." I giggle slightly to myself. I use my quirk to wrap up the student from every direction, like a spider web. If it's a realm of shadows and darkness, I should be able to use my quirk to the best of its ability. Soon after wrapping the student in my web, the conscious shadow looks down on me. It's even bigger than I thought. Boom, I tried to encase it into my own shadow, but it repels me like a giant force, throwing me to the side violently. I try to do something different. The shadows from the ceiling, the ground and all the walls start to ooze and drip. It slowly drips on the shadow monster as it starts to form and encase it in a cocoon of shadows. It seems to be resisting as it nearly strikes me again, tearing off the shadows in the process. I can feel my mental and physical fatigue increasing as I push my quirk harder as I start to take encase one of its arm first. One by one, I slowly corrupt and overwhelm him, the shadow falling into the cocoon and falling to my control, even if it's only temporary. Haha, such little tricks you have. Are you guys really UA students? My, how they must have lowered their standards. Then why wasn't I given a chance? I cover my mouth subtly as, although I said those words, it wasn't me saying it. Is this the side effect of my quirk? The corruption. I continue to tighten the hold on this student more. It seems he didn't seem to notice what I said. "Release him. You should be more polite. It's just not good manners." As I pull on my lower eyelid and stick my tongue out mockingly. Haha, now, here's where the real fun begins. Puppet strings. This time I use it in the shadow itself as I control its entire being with only one of my arms. I hear its voice less and less as I try to suppress it. Soon after, the voice becomes a quiet whisper, begging for freedom. As I leave the shadowy consciousness and enter back into the storm zone, I look up to the looming shadow as he falls into my control. He is still obedient and follows the movements I make with my arm. It's like a dog, connected by a chain and leash. I check on the other student, who was knocked unconscious and sitting in the rain. I move him into one of the buildings as I leave the storm zone with this shadow monster. What's that? Isn't that the hero killer? Lita quickly sprints out from the crowd of students. Lita, stop. That fucking moron. As soon as he tries to jump down to face them, he is bound, head to toe, by Erase Your Head. Don't move, those are villains. You need to think clearly. As hard as it is to accept, he can't just run to his death. Shigaraki POV only 13 and Erase Your Head. Where is he? We will just have to have fun with the pawns staying target. Erase Your Head, you guys tricked me. Where is All Might? He will arrive soon. I just got word that he stopped a villain attack. On the way, he's heading here as we speak, Kurogiri says as he interrupts Stain. Fine, let's deal with these fakes first. Erase Your Head jumps down at the group of villains, swiftly taking each one out one at a time. Kurogiri transports Stain behind him. Stain takes the chance as he tries to slash at him. Stain's arm gets caught by Erase Your Head's spines. What a pain. Stain suddenly dislocates his shoulder and twists his entire body to kick Erase Your Head away. He pops his arm back into his joint as he jumps forward with his knife. 13 tries to interrupt the fight, but is being overwhelmed by a swarm of villains. The students try to help him but are overwhelmed as well. Did more villains join in because of the hero killer? Kurogiri. Got it. Kurogiri wraps around me, and we block Erase Your Head's path for escape. As Stain lunges forwards, cutting at him, I put forward my hand to grab him and turn him to dust. He quickly erases Stain's quirk, forgetting about me. Whilst he's distracted, I grab his shoulder tightly. My quirk spreads as his shoulder starts to crumble, his joint becoming weak as his bone starts to crumble and crack. Suddenly, bam, one of the students kicks Stain aside. Erase Your Head took advantage of the opportunity to trap me in his binds. Kurogiri pulls me aside safely as Stain jumps back to us to recover. I look to the side as the students and 13 are completely helpless. 13 soon gets knocked down as explosions ripple around him, protecting him from the villain. It must be from the other students' quirks. Kurogiri, they are bothersome, deal with them. Got it. Stain jumps back in to fight Erase Your Head as Kurogiri heads towards the students. All the students trying to flee or to help with the villains get sucked up by Kurogiri. Nearly all the students disappear. A few of them gets left behind as Erase Your Head disables his quirk. I can hear him talking to one of the students. Ugh, this was supposed to be simple. Why isn't the boss here already? Lita, get outside and contact All Might and the other heroes. But now the boy who struck Stain quickly flees for the stairs. As he runs out the building, he gets knocked back inside by a swarm of villains. He tries to take down some of the villains, taking 2 or 3 of them down due to their carelessness, but one by one, he starts getting battered by the villains. As he gets overwhelmed, as more villains start to enter the building and block him. Damn, that brat was actually right, I say as I scratch at my neck in discomfort. I need to end this. Now Nomu reacts and jumps forwards to punch Erase Your Head. Erase Your Head tries to move to the side, but he winces in pain from the movement of his almost destroyed shoulder. He can't move away fast enough as Nomu strikes down on him. Suddenly a tsunami of villains flies down from the staircase. This can only mean one thing: the boss has come. All Might, he's finally here. Boom. Even before I could see him enter, a clash of fists occurs as All Might punches the Nomu in response, deflecting the punch to Erase Your Head, nearly breaking the Nomu's arm right there and then. Hey, why is he so strong? Isn't he supposed to be weaker? As all with 13, I'm sorry. But for now, where are the students? I don't know. They took them, Erase Your Head says as he bleeds further from his shoulder and the cuts around his body. I don't know how he's still conscious. What a pain. Lita is safe for now, though he was injured by the villains out front. All Might says to Erase Your Head. Erase Your Head looks down in response as if it was all his fault. He told Lita to get help. He's the reason he got injured. It's fine now. There's no need to worry because I'm here. All Might slowly picks up Erase Your Head as he disappears for a second, coming back with no one in his hands. He must have got him to safety. All Might charges forth and starts punching at the Nomu without effort. A barrage of punches clashes with Nomu as it tries to react, targeting his fists to block him. Nomu is slowly getting pushed back. How we prepared for this? Did that guy lie to me? He isn't weaker at all. Kurogiri returns as All Might pushed Nomu to his limits. We have to intervene. All the hard work, he is cheating. Kurogiri wraps himself around me as I push my hand forth to grab All Might. He dodges as he grabs my arm and throws me out of Kurogiri's quirk into the air. This was all done by you. You won't be escaping today. As Nomu charges All Might with his back turned, looks back at him, as if he wasn't even a challenge. As Nomu gets closer and closer, he quickly twists his body, readies a punch and shouts at the top of his lungs, Texas my eye Ash. He blows Nomu across the hero course, as Nomu crashes into the wall. You really are tough, but you aren't my match, he says, as the Nomu struggles to his feet. He grabs me, restricting my arms and legs. A knife comes flying out of nowhere as Stain tries to stop him. All Might punches the air to blow the knife away. Unintentionally, along with the knife, Stain gets blown away as well. This distraction was enough for me to get free of his arms. I back off as I think of retreating. Nomu has only weakened him. He's not capable of beating him. Stain wipes the blood off his face from the sheer force of the wind that the punch created. It cut him whilst he laughs in response. Ugh, what do we do now? I get ready to surrender this game. Until suddenly, boom, an almost supersonic-like sound occurs as All Might's figure gets blown away, his figure like a blur in the wind. Crash sounds of him smashing into objects continues to ripple and echo throughout the building. I look up, as I see a massive creature, standing around 12 meters tall, steps out into the open. It was a massive monster on top of it. What the hell? I look in sheer shock as I see that brat riding it like a pet. What the hell is this game-breaking bug? Am I late to the party? Haha. He shouts with an almost deranged tone. The shadow monster roars as if it was speaking as well. What the hell, is he insane? Deku POV. After taking over Dark Shadow, it feels like it's my own quirk. The feeling of power rushes over me as I can feel its entire being screaming to fight. That bird brain is trapped inside Dark Shadow, as if consumed by his own quirk. Hilarious. Tokoyami. Huh. He prefers to go by Tokoyami. Wait, you can speak. I can usually only speak to Tokoyami as he controls and suppresses me. But with you now, I can finally speak to someone else, and I feel I can really let loose. I just want to fight. I don't care who is against, just let me out and fight them. You really are mad dog, aren't you? Very well, let's go find the others. I look for the exit to leave the storm zone. I leave it as soon as I find it. I enter the massive dome-like structure, looking onwards to see the carnage that is happening. Villains are storming through, everything looks like a mess. Shigaraki is getting manhandled by All Might. I need to take a picture. I guess the plan isn't going to plan. He starts getting flailed about in the air. I look to the side as our trump card is nearly unconscious with its bones bent in different ways, almost mutilated. Dark Shadow, if you want to fight, the strongest guy here is All Might. Let's have some fun then. Dark Shadow suddenly starts storming to All Might like it's a monster on a mission. We start getting closer and closer until, and without him even noticing, All Might gets sent flying by Dark Shadow into different buildings and zones, alerting the entire dome of his presence as he stands back up immediately with anger on his face. Am I late to the party? Haha. Haha. That's the spirit. Let's crush the Moyoi, not those guys. They are our enemies. The one we need to stop is All Might. Just a little. No. He sounds like a grumpy kid who just got his candy taken away. Christ. The hell are you doing? Shigaraki says as he looks up to me. What? Can't a guy go for a ride around here? Not used to being looked down on. I say as I literally look down on him. All Might stands back up as he stretches his shoulder. So, you're their trump card. Taking control of one of my students. You sure have the guts. Well, one of us has to. Boom, without realizing, All Might knocks me off Dark Shadow with a huge gust of wind. I use my wire to stop myself from crashing into the ground by wrapping them around a light post. Oi Deku, we have to work together on this one. The plan has failed. I suddenly hear from the side as Shigaraki of all people proposes to work together. This plan really must have gone to shit. I look over to Stain as he nods in agreement. Dark Shadow. Let's go harder on the offensive. Finally he charges forwards at All Might. All Might looks reluctant before grabbing its arm and twirling Dark Shadow round and throwing him on its back. Stain runs forward, throwing his knife in advance whilst he distracted. I jump forwards as I bind All Might's arms as he recovers from his attack on Dark Shadow. I superheat my wires to scorch him as his skin starts to sizzle, whilst pulling hard to restrain him. All Might dodges Stain's knife. Stain appears behind him grabbing his knife, in midair stabbing down at All Might. I suddenly get a massive pull of resistance, as if he wasn't trying before. He throws me into the air over his body as he blocks Stain's knife, blowing him away. As I slam down hard on my back, without realizing it, my mask cracks slightly as my hair changes to a slight hue of green. Not enough to distinguish it from the gray color, but enough to be recognizable that I'm hiding my appearance. All Might punches the air at me downwards, not striking me directly as to try to incapacitate me. I can feel a sting from the wind as my body bleeds in response. If I wasn't resistant to this pain, I might have already passed out. Shigaraki tries to intervene All Might's counter-attack by trying to grab him. Kurogiri changes Shigaraki's attack to a feint as he transports his arm to a different area of All Might's body. He puts his hand on his back, nearly putting down all his fingers as All Might leaps into the air, crashing back down into the ground to make our footing unstable. Cracks start to appear in the ground as the floor quickly turns into a crater. Dark Shadow gets back up as he grows slightly bigger by the second, my control slightly loosening. He slams down on All Might with a massive hand palm coming from above. I try to bind him with my shadow as I lay on the ground, trying to recover from the throw by All Might. All Might catches Dark Shadow's palm as he struggles to resist the force, slowly sinking into the ground. How strong is Dark Shadow anyway? Stain takes the opportunity to finally slice at All Might, licking his blood in the process. All Might goes limp slightly as the force from Dark Shadow overwhelms him, slamming him into the ground. All Might on his knees, somehow resisting Stain's quirk as he struggles to stand. He looks up at us and says the numbers really aren't on my side. Dark Shadow starts to go rampant as he slams All Might multiple times in a row. I can imagine he's like a pancake right now. Shigaraki interrupts as he walks forwards. Let's just end this game already. I walk with Shigaraki as I look down at All Might in the crater, almost defenseless at this point. Shigaraki goes down to grab the almost unconscious All Might. He sunk into the ground from the repeated hits. Shigaraki inches closer and closer as he laughs in victory. Suddenly, he stops moving, almost frozen. Before I can realize what happened, ice surrounds us as I struggle to move my body. Luckily, we got here in time. Is that really All Might? You damn shitheads, what the hell have you done? Shoto, Katsuki, Kirishima. Damn it, we were so close. I can't move at all because of the ice. What the hell do we do now? What can I do in this situation? I and Shigaraki are completely frozen. I call for Dark Shadow's help, but it's acting strange. It's as if them being here is pushing it to break free of my control. I can't break free of this ice. All Might will get back up soon. Suddenly boom bam boom, a succession of explosions fires off into my ears. I try to look around, and I see two of the students until Katsuki appears in front of me like a blur. He uses his explosions to speed him up, and he starts twisting and spinning his body like a whirlwind, closing in with a hard kick. As his leg gets closer and closer, it feels like time is slowing down as I prepare to be hit until I get an idea. Shadow walk before I can be struck by his kick. Powered by his explosive quirk, I fall back into my shadow. I can't stay here for long, as the pain of moving is immense. As I look down at the normal world, almost reflected as if it was underwater, nothing is moving. Katsuki is stuck in the air, with his explosions not moving either. Is this because shadows can be as fast as the speed of light? If light moves, so do the shadows. Being here felt like time itself had really stopped. In the void there were far fewer spots where I can escape to, compared to my room anyway. This is probably because it's extremely bright. Although it seems I can escape the void through others people's shadows. And that means I take a step, it was less painful than last time. Is it because I've been using my quirk longer? Another step. Again and again until I was closer to Dark Shadow. The pain starts to build up one by one, as if it was stacking. Each step after 10 felt like torture, as I close into the massive pool of water in front of me. As I had a thought as I looked down at Shigaraki, he still knew the students. This is going to be a pain, I'll just let Kurogiri deal with him. As I think that, I see a huge lake of water, compared to the other puddles which I escaped to before. It's probably because Dark Shadow is just one massive shadow. I jump through as everything starts moving again. Dark Shadow, let's attack them. They start looking around in confusion as they just saw me vanish and nothing else. The red and white haired boy looks at Dark Shadow and me on top as we begin to charge. Dark Shadow was smaller than before, only around 7 or 8 meters tall. Tokoyami must have been close to breaking my control over Dark Shadow. Dark Shadow knocks Todoroki aside, aggressively. It was far less power compared to All Might. Is he holding himself back? He blocks with a wall of ice in response, still being knocked down as the wall smashes to pieces. Dark Shadow, do as I say, got it. Dark Shadow begins to fight back, slamming down as Katsuki dodges. Dark Shadow then smashes into Kirishima, sending him flying towards the entrance. He's probably done for. Red. Dark Shadow starts ominously walking towards Katsuki and Todoroki. He begins cackling as he stops shrinking, almost as if he's given up trying to break free. You can fight his control. Fight it. Really, bird brain? This is all you can do. Fight. Suddenly a surge of resistance happens unexpectedly as my guard is dropped. My quirk bindings break as Tokoyami is now free. Dark Shadow starts to grow smaller and smaller until it's the size of a bus, then a car, and then Tokoyami starts to take shape. Damn it. I'm not giving up that easily. Puppet strings. I try to take control of Tokoyami, but in the split second I try, Katsuki and Todoroki starts to charge at me. I try to block with Tokoyami, however. The ground turns to ice as if it was trying to trap me again. I leap into the air, hanging off the street limb to try and avoid it, until boom, Katsuki flies up, and suddenly strikes me with an empowered punch, straight to my face. I get sent flying. Kurogiri, Stain, Shigaraki and Nomu can be seen fighting All Might again. I can't give up. If I do, these pests will go and help him. I struggle to stand back up as even though I can't feel the pain, I can guess some of my bones must have been broken. Wait, what about my mask? I touch as I can feel cracks splintering down everywhere. If it's destroyed, everything will be for nothing. Kirishima stands from the back of the group of students, along with Uraraka. Oh, how stupid can I be? She stopped his fall. What a pain. Todoroki uses his quirk to make a barrier of ice against everything. Almost as if he wanted to trap me and stop me from using my quirk. Katsuki goes flying towards me, readying a punch. I flip him over my shoulder, almost reminiscent of the day on the riverside. As Katsuki stares at me with almost shock. I wouldn't be surprised if he could guess who I am. However, I am quirkless to everybody's eyes. They wouldn't believe someone like me would be extremely— He tries to punch me. I use my support gear in response to wrap my wire around his joints, preventing his punch, using my energy core to produce a frost effect, super freezing my strings. The cooling his body so that he isn't able to use his quirk. Or at least not as effectively as I made his body ice cold. He can't use his sweat for his explosions. I tried this again. Puppet strings along with my shadow strings. This time I also have my support gear wrapped around him. This all happened in a span of a few seconds as the students look at me and Katsuki-kun. I have a wicked smile under my mask. I have control of the person who tormented me for years. Uraraka, Todoroki, Kirishima, Tokoyami stand before me and Katsuki. Hey guys. Want to see something funny? I make Katsuki do a monkey dance as I laugh maniacally in response. Completely out of nowhere. What? I've been dreaming about this for years as I make more amusing motions with Katsuki. The others don't seem amused. I guess you guys aren't a fan of dance. Why are you even doing this? I'm just a distraction. I point with my thumb over to Nomu, almost laying into All Might. He gets slammed against the wall as Nomu overpowers him. Damn it, Todoroki begins to move his body in that direction as I punch him hard with Katsuki. Don't get distracted, you are going to make me feel bad. I trickle my finger down my face, as if mimicking a tear. I put my hand over Katsuki's mouth as his eyes scream in anger. Each of the students looks at me with a dumbfounded expression, as they begin to charge at me in response. This will be fun, let the game begin. Shigaraki POV, what the hell? I was so damn close, what is this? I look down to see my lower body is frozen. I look behind me to see if Deku is trapped as well, but as soon as I do, I just see an ice mold with nobody inside it. He must have gotten out. Kurogiri, I get transported outside the crater. I call for Nomu as he walks over to me slowly. All Might suddenly looks up at me with determination in his eyes. He leaps out of the crater towards me as he readies a punch. Nomu blocks it with equal power. He must have gotten weaker now. They exchange blows back and forth. Stain and I block off All Might's path for retreat behind him. Stain runs forwards, cutting at his leg. He licks the blood and nothing happens. Stain looks in shock as his quirk fails to work on him. I look behind us as I see an almost dead-like erasure head, slumped against the wall, with one eye open. His eye glows red as I could guess what just happened. Stain retreats off of All Might as he continues to punch back and forth with Nomu. Even now, All Might is gaining the upper hand. With each punch his power ripples throughout the building. Raw energy being dispersed everywhere, which each blow countered. All Might grabs Nomu's arm as it missed an attack. He lunged forwards as he leaps into the air, spinning Nomu and throwing him across the course once again. As he lands, he coughs out a blow to our surprise. Stain and I get transported by Kurogiri from above as we fall down to All Might. He suddenly looks up, as if expecting it would happen, and catches both of us in one hand each, throwing us to the ground and encasing us in concrete. Stain suddenly coughs blood as the back of his head was slammed into the concrete as well. Kurogiri tries to pull me to the side, but All Might grabs him and throws him around like an old drag. I slowly stand up. Stain is still encased into the ground, almost lifeless. I walk forwards, with broken bones but a determination to kill. One step at a time, closer and closer until I can almost grab him. He picks me up by the wrist and puts his other hand on my face, slamming me into the ground once more. Nomu. Nomu for the last time, sprints out to All Might. Without him realizing, he grabs both his hands, puts them together, and with the still slumped over All Might, he slams down on his back as hard as he can. All Might grunts in pain as he can't take anymore. In response, he throws one final punch as he falls forwards on his knees. the symbol of peace on its knees against us. I try to pick myself up just once more. I have to one more time. My body, almost gravity-defying, lifts itself up. I stumble to the almost unconscious All Might as I bring my hand down to grab him. Finally AHA hot deku POV. I stand here with Katsuki-kun in my control. Kirishima stands tall against Katsuki as they begin to fight it out. It gets easier and easier every time I use this ability. How I can motion them, how I can use their power, how easy it is to control them. So, whilst Katsuki-kun is fighting your beloved friends, how about we fight as well? Make it a bit more interesting. Haha, is this all some game to you? Some game? Some game, of course it is. How could it not be after I lose over and over again? This is nothing more than a game to me, but this time I will win. You are completely insane. Sanity is overrated. But you're right. I'm completely mad, but you know being crazy is much better than being stupid. I lunge forward. Todoroki reacts by putting his arm forwards as if to prepare his quirk. I pull his arms down from his own shadow, trapping and binding him to the floor. I kick him in the jaw whilst he's hunched over. He blocked it a split second away from his face with spikes of ice. Dark Shadow comes forward from the extremely exhausted Tokoyami. He tries to strike me, but I manipulate Dark Shadow to attack Todoroki. He screams in pain whilst Dark Shadow takes a bite out of his side. Todoroki looks down in acceptance, as if giving in. He looks around at his classmates and friends before making a resolve in himself. Kirishima, almost unable to move because he was unable to fight back against Katsuki. Dodging and weaving was the only way he could fight back, however. Bit by bit he started to lose and get hit more. He falls down as he suffers a barrage of blows from his friend. Suddenly, a huge barrage of flames comes forth as it melts his student outfit. Dark Shadow crawls away in fear of the light, while some of my strings holding Katsuki breaks loose. I move Katsuki away so that my strings aren't completely gone. I move into the void quickly, over the extreme light that Todoroki is putting out. There are barely any spots to escape to until I see your Rakas. I move to her shadow, leaping out and kicking her to the side. I quickly use my support gear to grab both of Todoroki's arms whilst he doesn't realize, super cooling him and pulling them backwards to lock them into place as I retract my support gear, pulling me towards Todoroki. Crunch both of Todoroki's arms and back crunch extremely loudly as I put my foot in between his shoulder blades, kicking him and breaking his backbone ever so slightly and dislocating his arms. He falls forwards, almost as if he fell unconscious from the sudden shock of pain. Katsuki looks towards me in surprise as I hold his friend by the neck. My cables retracted when I entered the void, allowing Katsuki to escape using his quirk. He sees Todoroki full. With a shock on his face, he shouts out to me. You bastard! With Kirishima, Todoroki, Tokoyami and Uraraka down, the only one left was Katsuki-kun. He tried to attack me directly, however I restrained him with my shadow. Before he can get rid of it with his quirk, I use my support gear to subdue him easily. Yes, I'm crazy, but in a one-on-one battle, this doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is the laying on the ground in the end. I start to choke Katsuki with my wires around his neck. His eyes are screaming for help. He slowly tries to grasp for air as his entire body starts to shut down. Seconds that felt like years watching Katsuki beg and cry for help. This is extremely ironic. Before he lost his breath, I got closer and closer as he slowly lifts his energy-deprived arm. An ominous feeling comes over me as he blasts me with everything he has left. Was he building up his sweat so that when I came closer, he could hit me as hard as he can? Whatever. I managed to get away in time. This is what I thought as my hair turned from gray to a light green. The mask, that was cracked all over, splintered and fell apart, revealing nothing but one of my eyes. Katsuki looks at me straight into my eye as he blacks out. Deku POVHA hahaha. I hear Shigaraki laughing madly in the distance as he slowly approaches, All Might. Closer and closer, until bang bang zip shots are suddenly heard out of nowhere. Before I could realize it, GHHHHH scream is heard. Shigaraki is shot through his hand. All Might looks up with a look of relief as steam starts to exude from him. I look up to the entrance to see villains piled up on the stairs as the teachers from UA stand out heroically. How did they find out? Did someone sneak out when we weren't paying attention? No, we had villains outside. Even if I didn't see them, they would have stopped them. Then what? Did they have someone who could teleport? No. I don't remember any of them having that quirk. In the files I comb through my memories as I try to remember each one of the students' quirks. This continues until I look at the heroes and see a pair of floating gloves. I soon realize what just happened. Damn it, I scream internally. There was one person I didn't think of, Tor, Hagakura, the invisible girl. It must have been her. Thinking more and more about it, I get angrier. I should have thought about this. She must have got out of range of the jammer and called them. We need to hold on. As I'm thinking about what we could do, I suddenly hear from Shigaraki, grab the students. We can't let them be taken. Got it. As you wish. I grab Kirishima and Tokoyami with my wires, holding them by the arms and necks, so that the heroes couldn't do anything to attack. Could I trap them in the damn blocks of cement soon surround the students, so that Kurogiri couldn't grab him as a hostage. Kurogiri uses his quirk to move away from the cement that is tracking his every movement. Stain suddenly stands up in response to the waves of heroes. He has a wicked smile on his face, as if he's looking forward to this. Hey, Kurogiri, take him. I throw Kirishima over to him. If I can just use Dark Shadow once more, we can get out of this mess. I try to use my quirk, but I just need a little bit of time. Stain suddenly appears in front of me, almost knowing what I want to do. I try to use my quirk on Tokoyami puppet strings. I enter the dark and hazy realm that Dark Shadow is stored in. I see an unconscious Tokoyami and a weak and frail Dark Shadow. I look at the deflated balloon-like shadow as I try to manipulate the realm of darkness itself. I try to push and pull the shadows, trying to slowly move it. I start to focus the path back into the frail shadow. Minutes pass as I start to funnel each bit of shadow essence of the realm left into Dark Shadow to give him the power to fight once more. 1 meter, 3 meters, 5 meters, he keeps growing until he is 9 meters tall. Do you want to fight once more? He doesn't answer me. Can he only talk if Tokoyami is conscious? He instead nods his head vigorously. If only I could keep Dark Shadow whatever. With a smile on my face, we exit the realm that was once filled with shadows, that is now a bright white light, devoid of all darkness. As if Dark Shadow consumed all of it for one last fight. My eyes adjust to the light as we come back to the normal realm as I see Stain bleeding heavily. Kurogiri is nowhere to be seen, most of the villains are down, and Shigaraki is being held by concrete, completely surrounding him, preventing him from moving his body or even his arms. I was only gone for a few minutes. What the hell happened? Shigaraki POV. What the hell is that brat doing? He's just sitting there. I try to grab All Might, but as I put my hand forth, a wall of concrete suddenly appears, blocking me. It suddenly starts moving as it slams against my chest. Crack off, first blood pouring from my hand and now broken ribs. I get sent flying as I can feel my bones cracking just from being hit by that attack. I try to leap back towards Stain, but my feet suddenly are covered in ice. I look down and see a young boy grasping at my legs with dead eyes staring at me, almost tormenting me. As I reach down to grab him, a concrete slams against my neck, pushing me into the ground. I can't move my body. The concrete forms a shape like a pillory as my head gets trapped in my hands soon after. I look at Kurogiri, who disappeared with the boy from earlier. I guess we still have a hostage if this goes any worse. Stain POV. I can't stop them for much longer. Whatever this kid is doing, he better hurry up. He seems to be confident. He must be able to get that monster back. I look to my side and see that freak being bound to the ground by concrete. I can't do anything with this guy constantly slashing at me with his blood. I think he's called Vlad King. He tries to restrict my movement. Shots are being fired at me, and I can barely dodge them all in time. Zip zip slash. I dodge the 2 bullets that fly past me. I suddenly have a thought as I lunge forward towards Vlad King. He slashes at me, but I stop my movement right at the tip of the blood. I let him cut my mouth purposefully, only by a little bit. As he suddenly drops to his knees. If his quirk does use his blood, all I have to do is intake his attack, just by a little bit. That kid's constant chatter about heroes actually came in useful for once I stab down to Vlad King. The knife is shot out of my hand as I start feeling a little drowsy. Some kind of purple gas fills the area. I look up and see it's coming from a woman. I try to ignore it as I back off from my attack on Vlad King. More bullets are fired out as it's getting harder and harder to dodge. I move forwards to grab Vlad King, but as I put my foot down, a sudden collapse of the ground happens as I try to jump up to escape it. I see an armored man leaving the ground. He must have dug below me. As I jumped into the air, I suddenly get an ominous feeling as I look towards the entrance. Zip crunch crack. One of the bullets missed me, but the other 2 hits on point. One hits my left shoulder and the other hits my leg. All my organs were missed, but my joints were specifically targeted. I start to plummet as I see the students being led away one by one, the injured teachers being taken aside. Was this all for nothing? No, this was for All Might. I suddenly noticed that All Might has disappeared. All that remained where he was a skinny person vaguely resembling him hiding behind the concrete like a coward. What, that's All Might? No, it can't be. He's a true hero compared to those fakes. They lied about him being quirkless and being able to pass on his quirk. It must be a lie. My respect for All Might slowly disappears as it's replaced with rage and disbelief. I look down as I start to see my shadow suddenly grows. Bigger and bigger. I look behind me to see that monster, once again, rising up. I see the kid standing next to it with his arm resting and leaning on its leg. What the hell happened to you guys? You look like shit. I look around briefly to see some of the heroes on the ground, along with Shigaraki tied up as if he was a child being scolded for doing something bad. Ha, what the hell happened to you? Shut it, you brat. Get me the hell out of here. Fine, hey Dark Shadow. I look back up at him as he looked down on me, nodding his head. He bit down on the cement, pulling it apart and lifting Shigaraki in his mouth. Shigaraki being covered in black ooze, similar to dog slobber, as he's picked up from his collar. What a sight to behold. Really? Hey. You asked for it. Zip tsk zip. Before I realized it, Kurogiri appeared behind me, looking up at Shigaraki with almost a giggle-like expression. Cough, we failed our objective. We need to leave now, Kurogiri states bluntly. Zip, wait, I have an idea. If they stopped shooting at us, I could tell you. At this point I'm just hiding behind a dark shadow because of the shots being fired. I motion for Kurogiri to come here, so I can tell him something. Whisper, I'll do it right away. He vanishes in thin air. What did you tell him to do? Secret, can you put me down now? Sure. Dark Shadow. As we begin to fight again, the teachers versus the villains. We stand almost as if we were in a lineup. Me, the insane kid at school. The bloody to hell, Stain. The crippled Shigaraki and the dog. The teachers start to move as a shriek damages our ears, blowing us apart. Whilst this happens, another teacher steps forth. The teacher splits into 2, then 4, until 20 or so copies of him appear as they begin to charge at us. Mists covered the area as I start to feel sleepy. I quickly use the shadow to close my mouth, similar to what I did to Katsuki-kun. Now at least I can't breathe it in. My training included respiratory improvements, so that I am able to hold my breath longer for when I'm in the void. I charge forwards to the duplicate teachers as I look around a dark shadow, trying to be held by cement. Stain dealing with the sniper and that loud mouth, and Shigaraki who is dealing with power loader. I am quickly surrounded by tens of clones, all rushing toward me. I cut a few of them down using my support wires. They keep coming, never stopping. I get kicked in the stomach as I fly for a second, crashing onto the ground. I look up as the clones start to jump on me. I take a huge breath as I start to suffocate from restricting myself earlier. One by one they dogpile on me, almost restraining me. I retreat into the void. They didn't fall in with me, which proves my theory that they can't follow me here. I leave through another shadow, all the clones piled up on themselves, before Dark Shadow crushes them all. I look over and see the cement hero, cracked all over. The clones all disappear as something starts to leak out of the main hero's mouth. It all starts to gather into one location as it gets bigger and bigger. It starts to grow even bigger than Dark Shadow. He looks about the size of Mount Lady, doubling the size of Dark Shadow's stomp. He crushes down on Dark Shadow and kicks him aside. He gets into a test of strength with Dark Shadow. He throws him into the air as I run forwards towards him. I enter the void to get on top of him and enter the shadow on his neck. I anchor my support gear into his clothes as I jump off, swinging and wrapping it around his neck. I imbue my support gear with darkness to increase the strength of it. I tighten it as he starts to flail about. He grasps at the wires that are tied on his neck. Struggling and pulling, he jumps into the air and slams on his back. Dark Shadow returns and slams on his stomach. He starts to make more clones. This time they appear outside his clothing. They rush towards me as I'm stuck trying to suffocate the giant. I take off one of my wires as I remove the control function of it, effectively turning into a whip as I slash at the clones. Hands start to appear from the clothing, grabbing at my arms to restrict my movement. The wires that are holding the giant clone loosen slightly as he punches back at Dark Shadow. He throws Dark Shadow through the dome itself. Dark Shadow roars in pain as the sunlight starts to reduce his size, slowly more and more before he can get up and retreat back into the darkness. He turns into a puddle, only leaving the quirk user, Tokoyami, behind. Damn it. Dark Shadow. All we need to do is buy time for Kurogiri. I have an idea. I make sure to fix my support gear as I start to trap each of the ectoplasm with my support gear and shadows, whilst maintaining the wires that are around his neck. I start to slowly tighten them. As seconds pass, more and more clones come forth. I restrict them entirely as I start to sweat and grunt in pain from the amount of shadows that I'm using. After some time passes, only 10 clones appear. There are no more as I think this is the limit of his quirk. To maintain that giant one and have these to support him, this is at most what he can do. The massive clone starts to shriek in pain as it turns into a puddle of ooze from the pressure of my wires. I fall into the massive puddle, covered in this ectoplasm. I even wince in pain. Some of my bones must be broken in order for me to feel this painful. During this short period he tries to recover. I see the true clone. I jump forwards, grabbing at his arms as he kicks me away. I manipulate his shadow so that he sinks slightly. I jump forward, grasping at his arms once more as I pass by him, with my wires connect and entangled. I close them in as it surrounds his neck like an assassin wire. He starts to choke on his own ectoplasm. DGHHT, I can't understand what he's saying. He starts to go limp and his body loses strength. He passes out soon after I actually manage to beat a pro hero all on my own. We need to be quick, reinforcements other than the teachers must be coming soon. What are the others doing? Shigaraki POV, I'm being left with this freak. I get separated from everyone else. They are in their own worlds as I stare down at this freak. He charges at me but suddenly burrows into the ground. I can't see where he's going, but the ground is shaking in all directions. I start moving so that I can react faster for where he comes out. The ground collapses slightly as I lose my balance. He burrows out of the ground and attacks me from behind. As I fall from the sudden shift of balance, I extend my arm from where he attacked me. I grab hold of his support gear as it starts to crumble. He kicks my arm and jumps back in fear, shaking his glove off as fast as he could, as he didn't know what would happen. His gear crumbles to dust as the realization of the difference of ability sets in. He starts tearing rocks out of the ground as he throws them. I return by catching them and immediately turning them to dust. Nothing he can do can help him. Suddenly a slight mist fills the air as both me and the freak stumble in response. I try to get my balance back until I'm struck in the skull by a massive slab of stone. He drives it further as I catch both of his hands. He pulls away before I can grasp them fully and destroy him. I run forwards, suddenly staggering in pain as my vision blurs slightly. I keep moving forward as the freak starts to panic. He burrows down one more time, but before he can escape, I plunge my arm downwards as well, grabbing his arm in full force. Screams can be heard in the burrow as the teacher returns to the surface. I look at him. I look at his arm pouring with blood. He used his quirk to rip his own arm off, to prevent the rest of his body from spreading. Got to hand it to you. Didn't think you were ballsy enough to do that. He burrows slowly one more time. This time he doesn't return. I can't chase him, either. What a coward. Suddenly, an arm grabs down at my leg, sinking me into the ground. He burrows around me so that I fall deeper and deeper into the ground, trapping me and encasing me. I suddenly feel sleepy. That purple mist returned once more. That same mist engulfed me entirely. I couldn't move away. I couldn't escape. Slowly, I become more and more drowsy. I try to keep my conscience, barely withstanding her quirk. We finally got one. I stand in a pile of dirt as I watch what happens around me with barely one eye open. Stain POV, what is even going on anymore? This isn't going like the plan stated. All the villains are down, All Might is hiding, and these bastards can't give me a second to think for myself. I overheard the plan that the kid whispered it might work. Zip, zip, bullets zip by as I struggle to dodge them. I feel lightheaded as blood continues to pour from my shoulder and leg. I suddenly get blown to the side as a massive boom of a voice nearly blows my eardrums. I need to get rid of that sniper. I run full force towards him, struggling slightly as my joints were shot. I jump towards him as he becomes more accurate with his shots. Bam, zip, one of the shots hit me in the hip. I cut a barrel of his gun as he tries to shoot again, blowing up in his hand. Burns are apparent as he winces in pain and drops the ruined weapon. Shrapnel from the weapon digs into his hand as blood starts to pour. I lick the blood that drips to the floor as he falls to his knees. I get ready to slit his neck before I get blown forwards by the boom of a voice. Sue up. The boom was much more intense than his other screams. Almost in desperation, he stops me. I stab down at the sniper, cutting into his flesh. I look back at the screamer. Behind him, I see that frail man once again. He looks up at me in shock as he suddenly grows in size. His weak body returns to his muscle-like form. I see he isn't the person I thought he was before I strike down at the sniper one more time, finishing him, All Might, from a far distance, along with the boom of the loud mouth together. Texas me. The wind pressure slams me in the wall as I feel every bone in my body almost broken. I can't muster the strength to stand. I look at All Might as he returns to his weak and frail form. No, this needs to end. He is not a true hero. He needs to die on sheer willpower alone. My body moves, inching closer and closer. Everyone around me freezes as the distance closes. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. That's all I need. Deku POV. If everything goes to plan, the fall of All Might will happen, even if we aren't the direct cause of it. Whilst I'm thinking on it, a black smoke appears in front of me. Kurajiri. We have everything. Really, I didn't think he'd be so stupid. Hahaha. Hahaha. He looks at me as if he's in a daze. What is he thinking? Let's get the others and retreat. We've achieved our goal. Of course. Oh, give me a second. I almost forgot one thing. I start cutting up ectoplasm, cutting his joints. His ankles, his shoulder, his knee. I'll make it so he can never be a hero again. That he won't ever be a nuisance again. It's so easy to just kill him. Should I? No, I shouldn't. Maybe these choices are so difficult. This is so fun. Ha ha ha, blood splashes on my face from the wounds. Did I cut an artery? Meh. He shouldn't be able to walk again, let alone be a hero. I'm finished, we can go now. Maybe you should disable your quirk. I don't think he's going to be moving anytime soon. Kurogiri responds in surprise. He must be thinking to himself how brutal I was as he looks at the fallen hero in pity. He wraps his quirk around me, we disappear from the air like a ghost in the wind. As we appear, the surrounding heroes look at us in shock. I see Shigaraki unconscious, burrowed into the ground PFFT. I kick him in the head as I crouch down, patting him on the head afterward. He looks at me with sheer anger in his eyes. If a gaze could kill, this would be it for me. PFFT Shigaraki-sama, I guess you won't be doing missions anytime soon. You've been grounded. Hahaha. You brat. Get me out of here, before I turn you into a pile of dust. What, feeling a bit dirty? Shut it, he looks down, as if trying to hold back his anger. What? This situation is really groundbreaking, I'm going to kill you, you brat. He starts wriggling around like a worm. My life is complete. The heroes just continue to stare at us before they snap out of their delusional states. I hope you guys don't mind, I'm just going to burrow him for a little bit. I really am going to kill you. Hey Kurogiri, let's get out of here. No you don't. Ha, too late. Kurogiri transports me and Shigaraki-sama. Next stop, Stain. As we transfer to where Stain was, the entire area is filled with a pool of blood. The ground itself is dyed red as I begin to have an ominous feeling. I run out, looking around. I see craters everywhere. Holes in the wall, bullet holes as if they were everywhere. Where is he? I look forward to seeing the weak form of All Might, holding Stain. I grit my teeth as I look at them. I can't tell if Stain is unconscious or I run forwards before being held back by Kurogiri. Don't be an idiot. Running in recklessly will get you killed. There are 3 heroes there. Shigaraki is on the brink of passing out, and you've overused your quirk. What do you think will happen if you fight now? I can't just leave him. The heroes look towards us with a shocked expression. I pull away from Kurogiri as I run towards Stain. Give him to me. What are you waiting for? He's gone. I refuse to believe it. Give him to me now. The heroes realize that they weren't strong enough to take us all on. They can only comply, hoping a fight wouldn't break out. The 3 heroes next to them, All Might, who cannot use his muscle form anymore. Snipe, his gun was destroyed by Stain, effectively making him useless, and present Mick, who was the only hero who still had some aspect of their quirk still functional. They stand back, allowing me to take Stain. I pick him up, as I notice his body is cold. I try to find a pulse, anything. Please nothing. I start to walk away with him in my arms, trying as hard as I can to hold back my tears. Even if it was only for a few months, he was the only father figure I've had. I've never lost anyone before. Step by step, each one becoming harder and harder to move. Tears started to flow as the realization sets in. My mask, my facade, started to crumble and crack. My mask drops to the ground, turning to a pile of dust. I look back towards them, anger in my eyes. This was All Might's fault. He took everything away from me. He deserves to pay. I will pay this back tenfold. All Might had a shock in his eyes as I turned my head towards him. My once gray hair turned green as my once cheery expression turned dark. He notices straight away who was behind that mask. The quirkless boy who once asked if he can become a hero. Now, a villain. He will get what's coming to him, one by one. I stand with Kurogiri and Shigaraki. I say to them with my head held low as my hands are stained with his blood. He's gone. A moment of silence passes as Kurogiri takes us away. Videos surge, coming from every informational outlet possible. Newspapers, online articles, news stations. Almost as if they were forced to publish this story. During the incident occurring at USJ, images were captured. The hero killer is no more. This isn't the main story though, as a video was captured. The hero of peace is dying, his form revealed to be frail and weak. Villains are using this chance as crimes are on the rise from this video published by an anonymous source. Sightings of villains has increased as a result of this incident. They are causing mayhem across each of the cities. Will the symbol of peace wither? Or will he protect us all? Izuku Midoriya is missing. His family is distraught. All Might didn't reveal his name. He felt responsible. He wants to correct his life, give him a new path and a new choice. Today, we have some new recruits. A lineup of different people appear. Shigaraki immediately tries to attack them. I restrict him with my shadow bind, grabbing at his arms and legs to stop him. I'm Himiko, Toga. My name is Dabihhhh, she shouts, as I look in surprise as she runs towards me. She grasps at my hands and shouts, "You're the puppeteer, right? Stain's apprentice. Your height, your quirk, your stare, it must be you. I'm a huge fan. Did you use hair dye? I like the white look. Himiko stares at me closely right into my eyes. Yeah please, call me Deku. Alright, Deku. It's really nice to meet you. She gives off a blossoming grin. Stain, although you weren't the best, you tried to achieve your dream. What should I do now? I don't know what to do. Water drips from my cheek. I can't tell if it was from tears or the rain. I stand over his grave. Alone. He had no family to depend or rely on. What made him hate heroes and idolize All Might to begin with? It's all Might's fault. I leave some chrysanthemum flowers next to his tombstone before having a moment of silence. By now, my face is probably associated with the puppeteer. I don't think All Might would keep it to himself. I need to leave. I need to vanish. But first, I need to talk to All for One. You finally want to do it, Midoriya. Once you do, there's no going back. Yes, it's time. I will get revenge on everyone who treated me like dirt. Be sure to return this favor. The device is behind you on the table. Designed exactly like you asked. Be sure to put it to good use. No problem. After this I will vanish from the public and join the league. I expected as much. Behind the device there is also a fake identity, constructed for you. Oh, you really anticipate everything I do. It's an investment. You have proved yourself more than worthy of it at USJ. Then I will begin. Thank you for your help. Some days pass. After the USJ incident, companies are being pressured to withdraw their support from the Camino Corporation. News of plagiarism fills the street as it's being publicized by each and every newspaper. He really works fast, doesn't he? I received a meeting with the people who fired me. Their stocks have fallen since they were caught in a huge scandal. They hire promising individuals only to fire them and steal from them. It was widely publicized. I was called in order to testify for them and dissuade the media. They offered me a lot for it, enough to buy a mansion. I don't need it. I'm currently standing in front of a room full of reporters. I guess they haven't recognized me. Is it true that the Camino Corporation has been plagiarizing designs? I look over to the person who was once my manager. I stand up straight with a smirk on my face. I put a facade on my face, trying to remember how I acted during the USJ incident, trying to get into character. Is it true, you say? When I joined the company, I first showed them my designs in the interview. Not even a day passed before they told me to come to work for them. When I got there, I completed my first project. Everything was going well. Until the manager told me that my designs were low quality when I published them. I looked over my designs and realized they weren't mine. I was fired on the spot, without a word to retort. A few days passed and I saw my designs, that I actually made and didn't publish, being used and publicized. They didn't even give me a word to speak before I left. At first I thought it was the other interns before I realized what interns manage projects that put a massive impact on the company on their own. They stole from me, and I'm sure they stole from others as well. They hired me so that they could profit and steal from me. That's all. Did they really hire you on the first day? Yes, I also have to mention that I have no educational experience in design work. I'm self-taught. I found it odd that a company that is as difficult to get to as Camino, accept a quirkless person who didn't have the qualifications to be a mechanic. I personally believe the company need a rework, and maybe, just maybe, they can get their act straight. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening. I walk off to the side as shouts from reporters echoes throughout the halls. My previous manager looks at me in shock with her jaw to the floor, almost as if she couldn't understand or perceive what just happened. I walk by her as she continues to keep her stare fixed ahead of her. Bodyguards start to surround me, as my arms are grabbed. Disgusting. I go along with it, so that my plan can come full circle. They bring me to the company owner as he tells me to come inside his office. He tells the bodyguards to wait outside as I can see veins popping out of his forehead. This is going to be fun. And that concludes this episode. If you enjoyed it, I'd seriously love it if you guys could leave a like on the video, as it genuinely helps out so much, and it keeps me going, plus it takes only 1 second. That said, have a wonderful day. See you in the next one.